The morning breeze entered through the large windows of N'Golo Kanté's house, bringing with it the fresh scent of garden flowers. It was one of those ordinary days in the quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of London. The modern mansion, with its minimalist lines and sober decor, reflected the player's success and discretion. But inside that silent home, a routine unfolded far from the spotlight and headlines. Francisca, the cleaning lady, was once again there before sunrise, as she was every day. She was discreet, said little, but her gestures showed care. She wiped the furniture with delicacy, rearranged pillows with almost artistic precision, and even the shine on the silverware seemed more intense after she touched it. She wasn't just a maid. She was someone who silently dedicated herself to an invisible job. Kanté, used to keeping a cordial relationship with the staff, began to observe her more closely. Francisca never complained. Always with the same serene smile, she thanked any small kindness and always refused rides or extra help. She left the same way every day, walking firmly, with a worn-out bag on her shoulder, taking the same bus at the corner, as if she were invisible to the world. One morning, Kanté woke earlier than usual, came downstairs and found her there, silently cleaning the floor. She paused for a second when she saw him barefoot, holding a mug of tea. "Good morning, Francisca." "Good morning, Mr. Kanté. I'm sorry, I was just finishing here quickly." "No need to apologize," he said, smiling. "You always arrive so early." She simply nodded and returned to her work, but that scene stuck in Kanté's mind. In the following days, he began noticing more: her calloused hands, worn-out shoes, tired glances when she thought no one saw her. He tried to make conversation, but Francisca always replied with politeness and brevity. There was something strong about her, something that reminded Kanté of his own mother. The same quiet dignity, the same hidden strength. Until one cloudy afternoon, something inside Kanté spoke louder. When Francisca said goodbye as always and headed to the bus stop, he grabbed his cap, a large jacket, and quietly left through the back door. He got in his car but parked a few blocks ahead, watching. When she boarded the bus, he did the same, sitting a few rows behind. The trip was long. They passed through increasingly distant neighborhoods, industrial zones, until the bus finally stopped in an uneven area where the streets were dirt and the lampposts flickered. Francisca got off, walking with confident steps through narrow alleys surrounded by makeshift homes. Kanté followed, heart tightening with each step. She walked down a muddy trail to a small hut with cracked walls and a zinc roof. No gate, no fence, just a cloth hung up as a door. Voices of children were heard inside. Kanté stopped at a distance, hidden behind a low wall. He watched in silence as she entered and was greeted by two small children who threw themselves into her arms with joy. A man with a weary look appeared next, leaning on a cane. Her husband, visibly unwell. She helped him sit, kissed his forehead, and went to the small gas stove, preparing something with the few ingredients on the wooden counter. Kanté stood there, frozen, with a tight throat. That scene looked like a mirror of his own childhood in the suburbs of Paris. The fragile walls, the dirt floor, the absence of everything, and still, the presence of love. His stomach knotted. That woman who quietly left his house spotless every day, who never asked for anything, lived a reality that many couldn't even imagine. The tears came before he could hold them back. Memories of his mother carrying heavy bags, his sick father, nights without dinner, training with an empty stomach. It all came back with brutal force. He sat on the curb trying to hold back the sobs but couldn't. There, hidden in that poor alley, the great star of world football broke down before the truth he preferred to forget, that his story wasn't so far from Francisca's. Kanté stayed there for a few minutes, trying to catch his breath while silently watching that family. His mind traveled through time. He remembered the smell of thin soup his mother would make when there was barely any food. The nights when the cold seemed to pierce the soul, and the whispered conversations of his parents trying to hide their despair over unpaid bills. It was as if, by looking at Francisca's life, he was staring into a mirror of the past. Still emotional, he returned to his car and drove slowly back home. He didn't say anything to anyone that night. He couldn't eat, didn't turn on the TV, didn't answer any calls. He just sat in his dark bedroom, staring at the ceiling with an uneasy soul. That woman, who entered his house daily without making noise, carried the weight of a world he knew well. But that fame, contracts, and applause had pushed into a distant corner of his memory. The next day, Francisca showed up to work as always, punctual, smiling, discreet. She pretended not to notice Kanté's swollen eyes when he greeted her with more gentleness than usual. She headed straight to the kitchen, organizing the dishes from the night before. Kanté followed her. "Francisca," he called softly. She stopped and turned, a bit surprised. He hesitated for a second, as if unsure how to begin. "How long have you been working here?" "Almost 2 years, sir. Since the pandemic," she replied with a shy smile. "And you never told me anything about your family, your children, your husband." She lowered her eyes. "I came here to work, sir. I don't like to bother anyone with my problems." Kanté nodded slowly, holding back emotion. "You've never bothered." "Quite the opposite." She smiled, grateful, and returned to her work. But that morning, something was different. Kanté couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. Francisca was the embodiment of dignity, a woman who, even living on the edge, woke before sunrise to care for someone else's house with care and without ever complaining. That afternoon, Kanté had a meeting with his agent. Seated at the table, he listened distractedly as the man spoke about new advertising deals, transfer possibilities, and marketing campaigns. "All of that is important," Kanté interrupted calmly. "But I want you to set aside a portion of what I have. A good portion. I have a plan." His agent, surprised, asked what it was. Kanté, with a determined look, explained he wanted to help Francisca, not just with a one-time donation. He wanted to do something lasting, a plan that would allow her family to escape that reality for good. Education for the kids, medical care for the husband, a dignified home. And more than that, he wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't make Francisca feel humiliated or inferior. She needed to feel valued, not rescued. The next day, Kanté asked to speak with her. Francisca entered the room with trembling hands, visibly nervous. Never before had the boss requested a private meeting. "Francisca, I'm sorry if I'm being intrusive, but yesterday, I followed you." Her eyes widened, confused. "I wanted to know more about you. I wanted to see who this strong, dedicated woman really was. I saw your home. I saw your children. I saw how hard you all fight." She stayed silent, unsure whether to feel ashamed or grateful. "I don't want you to feel bad," he continued. "But the truth is, I've been exactly where you are now. I know that struggle. I grew up in it, and I can't keep pretending I don't see." Francisca began to cry. It was a quiet, restrained sobbing that made her hands tremble. Kanté stepped closer and gently touched her arm. "I want to help, but only if you'll allow me." She nodded, unable to speak. In the weeks that followed, Kanté moved mountains. First, he placed Francisca's husband in a specialized medical program, covering all the costs. Then, he enrolled the children in a good school, with educational support and transportation included. And finally, he bought a small house in a safe neighborhood, close to a metro station with everything a family needed: clean water, sanitation, ventilation, decent rooms. When he took Francisca to see the new house, she collapsed, fell to her knees on the floor, hands covering her face, sobbing loudly as if years of weight were being lifted from her soul. Kanté knelt beside her and cried too, not as a boss, not as a football star, but as a human being. "This isn't charity, Francisca. It's gratitude," he said. "Gratitude for reminding me where I came from, for reminding me that no one gets anywhere alone." From that moment on, Francisca's life changed completely. Mornings no longer began with the sound of early buses in the outskirts, nor with the cold breeze sneaking through the cracks in her clay wall. Now she woke up in a clean room, with glass windows letting the sunlight in a modest yet dignified house that smelled of a new beginning. Her children, once used to playing barefoot on dirt floors, now wore sneakers and went to school smiling, with new backpacks and eyes gleaming with excitement. Her husband, once condemned to silence and limitation, began a proper medical treatment, with physical therapy, medication, and professional care. Slowly, he regained his strength, the light in his eyes, and hope. Still, Francisca did not want to quit working. Even with everything Kanté had done, she asked to continue cleaning his house. When he insisted she no longer needed to, she replied firmly, "Working in your house is not shameful for me, Mr. Kanté. It's an honor. I'm not less because I clean. I'm more because I can do it with dignity." Kanté smiled. He respected her decision but changed everything. She now had a formal contract, a tripled salary, health insurance for the whole family, and full flexibility. He treated her like part of the family. Sometimes Francisca's children visited the house, played soccer in the yard, ate cake in the kitchen with Kanté's nephews. The atmosphere had shifted. It was as if compassion had taken root there. One day, while they were having coffee together on the porch, something that had once seemed unthinkable, Francisca looked at the sky and whispered, "Sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming." "So do I," Kanté replied, looking at her. "Because deep down, you saved me too." She looked at him, puzzled. "Before I followed you that day, I was getting lost," he confessed. "Living a life full of victories and trophies, but forgetting the boy who walked with torn shoes through the streets of Paris. You reconnected me with who I was. You brought me back home, inside." She didn't know what to say. She just smiled, her eyes wet, and gently held his hand for a moment in silence. Over time, the story leaked to the press. A reporter, seeing Francisca leaving Kanté's house with her children, tried to approach her. She was discreet, revealed nothing, but rumors began to spread. A cleaning lady who had received help from the French football star, who had changed her life in secret, without seeking publicity. Soon, headlines emerged. Kanté, the golden heart off the pitch. N'Golo Kanté's humble act. The gesture that changed a family. But Kanté never wanted to give interviews about it. When asked, he answered with his usual simplicity. "I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just saw what everyone should see. That dignity has no price, that no one chooses to be born poor, and if I have a platform, it should serve something greater than my own success." His gesture inspired others. Players, entrepreneurs, even ordinary fans began to pay closer attention to the people around them. Support groups formed. Campaigns for invisible workers gained traction. Francisca was invited to share her story at a community center, where she spoke with a strong, emotional voice. "I'm not special. I'm just one among millions. But sometimes, one hand reaching out changes everything. And it's not just about money. It's about looking someone in the eyes and saying, 'I see you.'" She became a symbol of resilience and dignity. She received awards for her story. She wrote a small book with the help of a local publisher, telling her life journey. The title? The Clay House and the Golden Heart. In the preface, Kanté wrote, "Francisca taught me that there are greater victories than lifting trophies, that sometimes the greatest achievement is keeping your head high when the world tries to crush you, and that real heroes aren't on football fields, but in kitchens, on porches, on streets, on buses, smiling, despite everything." In the end, their friendship became a bond close to family. Kanté attended the birthdays of Francisca's children. She cooked for him on special occasions. When he got injured and was off the field for months, it was Francisca who stayed by his side, bringing herbal teas, telling stories, quietly praying for his recovery. Years later, when Kanté announced his retirement, he did it simply, with a single press conference. At the end, someone asked, "So now, what do you plan to do?" He smiled and answered, "Go back home, but not just to my brick house. I want to return to the home where my heart learned to beat again, and maybe help others rebuild theirs." In the audience, hidden in the back, was Francisca. Her eyes gleamed with pride. She knew that answer was for her. That even without cameras, trophies, or a packed stadium, the connection between them had built something far greater than any goal. It had built humanity. And no trophy in the world could ever represent that.